Hello, it is 4:03. Every time I think about changing the music that starts this, I just want to listen to Jason Daniele sing, and so I don't want to change it. Um, Welcome, my fellow actors and stage managers. Happy holidays to you all. Thank you for being here with us. My name is Todd Buonapane. I'm an equity member and an equity counselor, and this is the Actors Equity in Memoriam gathering. And we are here to honor the lives of our union siblings that have passed on. I will start the way every equity meeting begins with the code of conduct, which is a mouthful. And I'm going to admit Judy Martell. There we go. Actors Equity Association is committed to providing a respectful environment free of discrimination and harassment, regardless of an individual's race, religion, color, sex, age, or any other characteristic prohibited by law. Because the union expects participants in its activities, events, and meetings to respect one another and to recognize and value individual differences, Actors Equity Association will not tolerate discriminatory, harassing, disrespectful, or otherwise unacceptable behavior at any of its activities, events, or meetings. It adopts the following code of conduct and expects those that participate in any of its events, activities, and meetings to abide by it. In addition to this code of conduct, Actors Equity Association has an anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policy and complaint procedure, which covers staff employees of the union. This code of conduct is not intended to replace or amend that staff policy. And as always, along with the code of conduct, thank you, Javon, for showing that, we would like to set a tone of kindness. We're here to honor, celebrate, tell a fun anecdote. We are joined by members, friends, family members. Disparaging talk will simply just not be tolerated. But we've never had a problem before, and I don't expect to have one tonight. Because we all have limited time as we head into the holidays, I won't tell you all the history of the In Memoriam, but it is a grand tradition of reading the names and honoring our fellow union members. I also want to point out that on the member portal, there's a new page for submitting memories of members that have passed. And those memories will be published on the Equity website in the monthly In Memoriam post. And they're really lovely. And I got to write one for a friend a few months ago, and it was very meaningful to me to get to do that. So tonight, we will be reading the names of those that have passed between October 1st and November 30th, 2025. As a quick FYI, members and staff that have passed more recently have not been forgotten. Their names will be read at the next In Memoriam gathering. And it is also possible that someone will have passed in a month but has not yet been reported to our equity staff. The months that are listed are when the name was reported to equity staff, not necessarily when the member passed. Now, it is my hope and prayer that today the names will be read by myself, Kim Titus, Maureen Moore, who is having some internet issues. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to be a very lucky Maureen Moore understudy. And James A. Williams, who is not currently here, and I may be doing that too. So we are going to start with August and Kim Titus.
Member losses in August. Jerry Adler, Lonnie Anderson, Melanie Beal, Marshall Borden, Bruce Cobb, C. Courtney, Joseph Culleton, Kevin Fletcher, Lydia Hannibal, Loretta Higgins, Cleo Call Holiday, Joshua Philip Huff, Cleo Lane, Michael James Leslie, Teak Lewis, David May. Janet McCall. Jane Morgan. Rob Riley. Terrence Stamp. Jay Stewart. Tom Troop. Marlene Warfield. June Wilkinson. David Wilson Barnes. Alfie Wise. Daniel Ziske.
Thank you, Kim.
September,
Let's go for it, Maureen. Let's see if we can make it work.
September losses. Rita Abrams. Ramona Lenny Alpern. David Bazona. Catherine Bilbao. Lanny Doyle. Traber Burns. Lorraine Condos. Jim Connor. Roger L. Danchik. Dan Diggles. Jeffrey Dinmore. Ray Favero. Vincent N.P. Deliatra. Joel B. Goldman. Holiday.
Maureen, I'm gonna jump in because we're losing you a little bit. So I'm gonna pick it up. Thank you, Maureen. I'm so sorry because your voice is so much prettier than mine, but I don't want to miss anyone, so I'm gonna pick it up from Polly Holiday. David Hobson. Malik James. John Christopher Jones. Carolyn Lander. George Lee. Regina Lynn. Robin McGee. John Minjares. Susan Kendall Newman. Jack Powell. Robert Redford. Rodney Reiner. Scott Renzoni. Royce Rich. Jacqueline Riggs. Walter Ernest Sanders. Cherry Ann Shear. William Schill. George A. Schroders. Susan Shamroy. Lynn R. Shea. Kevin Sweeney. Michael Vine. Ronnie White. David Wiederman. Javon, do we have James with us? I don't think we do. You're getting a whole lot of me today. I'm so sorry, everyone. Member losses in October. Susan Barnes. Stephen Bostwick. Margaret DePriest. Samantha Egger. Lynn Jane Foreman. Todd Fortner. Howard Gervin. Michael Hamilton. Kimberly Hebert. Elizabeth Hodes. Diane Keaton. Otts Lopes, Douglas Leland, June Lockhart, Roxy Lucas, Seth Malkin, Ellen Martin, Stephen Mendio, Penelope Milford, Doug Miller, W.M. Perry Morgan, David Poirier. I'm sure I said that wrong. David Poirier. Forgive me. Eduardo Ricard, John Ryder, Barbara N. Roberts, Patricia Rutledge, Brad Russell, Prunella Scales, Paula Shaw, Ilona Simon, Susan Towers, Christopher Webb, Jack Forbes Wilson, John Woodvine. And finally, member losses in November. Bev Appleton, Chris Ailes, Scott Baker, Richard Blair, Katie Brazda, Bayomi Butts Banji, Alan Carlson, Ashley Carr, Robin M. G. Chadwick, Sharon Collar, Carol Cortland, James Edmondson, Saul Elkin, Neil Elliott, Elizabeth Franz, Libby George, J. David Hayes, Jack Hayes, Sally Kirkland, Diane Ladd, Harold McPherson, Carol Ann Morano, Christopher Merrill, Tom Nicholas, Stephen Pringle, Tracy Roston, Myrna Strong, Dudley B. Swetland, Vicky Thomas, John Tyrrell, Gwen Van Dam. Okay, so we have, now I have to do math, 44 minutes left in our gathering, and I would like to open the meeting to individual remembrances, anecdotes, celebrations, anything. I'm supposed to say, keep your statements to 2 minutes, but we've never had a problem. So if you go to 2.5, no one's going to be mad at you. We want time for everyone to speak. And I'd like to remind you all of the kind and respectful, positive tone we wish to create in this meeting. If you would like to speak, we're going to try the raise your hand feature, which Zoom has kind of moved. You'll see the react button, which is the little heart. And if you click that, then you can raise your hand. And if you can't find it, just turn your camera on and wave to me. And if you can't turn your camera on, just shout out at an opportune time. There's not a lot of us here. We can keep this casual. And yeah, you can turn your cameras on. You can unmute yourself. And if you're having trouble, just put it in the message box and we'll try to help you. But I'm going to start with my friend Nancy Daly. Hi, Nancy.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
The perfect way to start.
You wouldn't know that I make my living in TV and film, would you? No, I hid from the camera. Well, actually, Todd, I have 3 people to talk about, so maybe
Go for it. No rush. Go for it.
Okay. The first is Lynn Jane Foreman. She is a friend of mine from the Washington, D.C. area. And she is one of those women. She's British and American and has had one of the most dry, brittle wits you have ever heard in your life. She had a way of going, well, and it just, whatever came after that was hilarious. She was a wonderful actress. She trained in classical theater, was meant to do classical theater. She was meant to do period work. Just had this incredible presence, and she was also a very beloved and wonderful friend. Anytime she worked on a set, she made sure that everybody felt welcome, that everybody knew what they were doing, that everybody, she was one of those people that you just flock to. And sadly, she passed away from the effects of Alzheimer's. And for those of you who know me, know I lead teams for the Alzheimer's Association in honor of my parents. And when they told me that's how she died, I just, oh my God, no. It's hard, oddly enough, when I start losing friends of mine, who are in the same around the same age, just a few years older than I am, it's like a knife in the heart. And tragically, the next lady I wanted to talk about is Sally Kirkland. Oh my God, what a lady. The irony is, I did a movie with her about a woman with dementia in 2012, the same year that I lost my mom. And Sally was playing a woman who had dementia. And, you know, um, I'll never forget, it was just months after my mom died. And she walked in, and all of a sudden it was, it was like I was talking, it was like I was there with my mom. I just like I had such vivid memories. And after the scene was over, we only needed one take. She came over and she said, I could tell your mom was with you. You did great, honey. And she turned to the director, we don't need another. And not many actors would do that. She would say, no, 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 that was it. We don't need another. And I thought, well, bless you. That was the kind of lady that she was. And tragically and sadly, when she died, she had developed dementia. So that was, I, I thought we'd have a cure by now, guys. I really do. I've been doing this for 15 years. The last person that I want to mention was Diane Ladd. I knew her as a fellow union leader, and she was so revered and so admired. What a fiery, feisty lady. Every time she got up to the mic during debate, people were like this. They were almost afraid to vote on the other side in the room, like, I object. And never mind, never mind. No, she was a force of nature, as you can imagine, but she was also a very generous, loving, wonderful lady, brilliantly gifted actress. And the world is just a little bit dimmer without, both Sally and Diane were just, they walked on water. So those are my three friends.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm sorry for your losses.
Thank you.
James, talk to us. Hi.
Hi, everybody. It's James Dybus here. I'm going to unraise my hand. There we go. I want to celebrate the lives of two terrific people. First, my dear friend Susan Barnes, who I met when I moved to Los Angeles in 1977. We did several equity waiver plays in LA, and she was an amazing, amazing woman. She started out as a dancer and worked in regional theater, and at the encouragement of all people, Agnes Moorehead, she came to Los Angeles. She became a member of the Academy, and still did her thing. She played a wonderful, funny role in Women Behind Bars in Los Angeles, and we did a play called The Great American Playwright Show, which was a series of 8 one-act plays, and Susan and I did a couple of plays within that evening. She was an amazing woman, and she was a mentor to so many people. and she taught people, and she was funny, and she was fierce and independent, and she was a gifted dancer. She was a mentor, and she gave so freely and generously of her time and her talents to people. Um, I'm trying to. She did several, as well as all of the theater that she did in Los Angeles. She also went over to London to premiere a play by Emily Mann called Still Life, a three-character play. So she, got about. She she was a woman about town and did her thing and always, always, always got noticed. She's one of these journeyman actors who did so many parts, and maybe people didn't know the name Susan Barnes. She didn't have her own television show, but if you saw her in a film, you remembered what she did. A film called Speed, and there was a scene in the elevator that stole the whole movie. One scene. And then she did another film called Leaving Las Vegas. She had a scene with Nicolas Cage where she ran the motel and came out and gave him hell at the swimming pool, where he broke glasses on the by the pool. She was one of those people that she really knew she really knew her craft, and she really knew how to portray so many different kinds of characters. I loved her dearly. We had a lot of fun times together. We got to be great friends. And she visited New York. And then after I left LA, I would go out there and visit with her. And my last visit with her, she passed on September 14th of this year. And my last visit with her was just a few weeks before she passed. She was in a nursing home in Pennsylvania near the town where she was born. And I went there, and she had to use a walker, and she was in the wheelchair. But I told her funny jokes and dirty jokes and made her laugh anyhow. And we just reminisced about the fun times that we had together. I am just so grateful for that opportunity, that I had the gift of being with her just a couple of weeks before she left the planet. She'll always be in my heart. And thank God she has a lot of things on film so that I can look at her every now and then if I go to YouTube. And Susan Barnes. And on her Facebook page, she calls herself Susan Dawn Barnes for some reason. Anyhow, she's my dear Susan Barnes. Like I said, she's always in my heart. And then the second person that I'd like to talk about is a man who was a giant in the theater scene in Los Angeles by the name of Ron Sossi, Sossi. He started a theater called the Odyssey Theater in LA, and it was an equity waiver theater. I worked for him a couple of times. Once with that show called The Great American Playwright Show with Susan Barnes and Robert Glaudini and Franklin Seals and Francis Bay. There were about 10 of us in this evening of 8 or 9 short plays. And Ron had the theater, the Odyssey Theater. He ran and operated that theater for 56 continuous years. He moved the theater twice to different venues, but he was there up until the day he passed. He was doing his thing. And he directed 2/3 of the whole Bertolt Brecht canon. He loves Brecht. And as a matter of fact, he starred and directed Baal, Baal, the Brecht play. And Ron was a big man, so I used to call him Brecht's Big Baal. and he was, like I said, amazing. He was truly a force. Won any kind of award that you can win in Los Angeles. He won for producing and directing and being a part of that Odyssey Theater for. Can you imagine 56 years? All the stuff he probably had to go through in 56 years, not only dealing with trying to keep the theater alive, but with crazy actors. you know. And I also had the opportunity. He asked me if I would come and play Lech Wałęsa in a play called Solidarity that I did with Linda Hamilton, played my wife, and Andra Akers was in it, and some wonderful people in Los Angeles. And again, he kept theater going and alive in LA. And I think they should put a plaque somewhere for him in the city. Ron Sossi, Sossi, may he rest in peace. Thank you.
Thanks, James. I'm
Mhm.
sorry for your losses.
Mm.
Hi, Judy. Talk to us.
Well, hope I get through this. This is my third time speaking this year. Second time speaking about a friend who, an unexpected death and about my age. So hoping we'll have a break in 2026. Jack Forbes Wilson was a beloved and unique presence in the Milwaukee theater scene. He was a pianist, accompanist, singer, actor, piano teacher, music director, orchestrator, church music director. I had the joy of working with him as I'm a Milwaukee stage manager and had the joy of working with him on two shows, two of my favorite shows that I've ever done, where he was a performer. And he just had a long, wonderful career here. He left 6 years ago to go back to Nebraska and care for his parents, and came back to Milwaukee for the first time at the end of August this year to perform in a production of Old Wicked Songs. And after rehearsal got underway, he started not feeling well. After the preview performance in September, he was taken to the hospital. 2 days later, he got a cancer diagnosis, and 1 week later, he died. So it was just a shock to our system. And as I said, we've had a number of losses like that this year. I don't know how well this will show up, but the local arts write-up about him was that he taught half of the city of Milwaukee to play the piano. So in addition to, and the show, the Old Wicked Songs that he came back to do, he was going to be performing with an actor who had been one of his students and was playing a student in the show. So that's my story, and so many people love Jack.
Thank you,
Mm.
Judy. I'm so sorry. I'll do Barbara and then I'll head over to you, Michael. Barbara. Hi, Barbara Calendar. How are you, friend?
Michael, you can do Michael first if you want.
Go ahead, Barbara. You're talking.
All right. Hi, I'm Barbara Calendar. I'm a counselor who lives in Seattle. And there are two people that I want to speak about. The first one is Stephen Mendello, um, who played my father in a production that I did at the Folger Theater Group in DC a really long time ago when I was playing teenagers. I was not a teenager, but I was a little bit older. Um, I, I was in a company of I was actually, this was before I joined Equity. Actually, I was an EMC at the time. I was one of the first EMCs in the country, and this was a company of, I was surrounded by Equity actors, all of whom were incredibly helpful, supportive, taught me all sorts of things. And Stephen was one of the people with whom I formed a particularly close friendship. I also remember at least once he was instrumental in my moving to New York, from where I moved to New York, and then I later moved to Seattle, and that's another story. So I actually have not been in contact with Stephen for a number of years. But when I saw his name on the memorial list, it's like it brought back all sorts of really, really good memories. He was very instrumental in helping launch my career. And then the other one, my other person that I want to speak about briefly is Barbara Roberts, who, as many of you know, but not all of you, was a counselor, and just recently died. I first met Barbara. Barbara was based in LA. I'm based in Seattle. I first met Barbara over Zoom when I got reelected to council in 2017. Didn't really get to know her in person for another couple of years. Everybody was in New York for an equity meeting, and I don't remember the exact details, but I had an extra ticket to Kill a Mockingbird, and Barbara went as my other, my plus one. And so I think particularly because of what play we were going to see, we just talked and talked and talked about all sorts of things. And then, we continued to talk over the phone. As those of you who are counselors know, Barbara loved to talk. And then I really got to know her when we served as vice chairs of the what used to be called the Developing Theaters Committee. It's now the Committee on Independent Theater. And now she's gone, and it's a big, a big gap for all of us. I am now the only Barbara on council.
Mm.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you, Barbara. Michael, talk to us. See if we can help you unmute. Did that do anything?
Did I mute? I'm unmuted.
Yeah,
I'm
we
here.
can hear you now. You're here.
All right. This is Bashir. Today is the last night of Hanukkah, and I believe in 6 degrees of separation my whole life. And I just happened to see this. I was a council member in 1970, 71 because of the great Gina Belkin and Barbara Fulton, who, when I complained about backstage problems during Happy Time, she said, well, why don't you go on council? I won by one vote. And it was the first year we did a recording from LA to here. And pardon me, but the asshole who lost to me, I went, wouldn't you ask for a revote? But I won by one vote. Because Gina said to me, if you don't like backstage what's going on there, you get on council. I was on ECCA at that point. But long story short, this just came to me, and I didn't know what any of this is about. But I live in Florida now, and just to feel connected to equity members. Now, Sally, I was a dancer for many years. My first job, I was 20, West Side Story for Jerry Robbins. I'm 82, last November 30th. And I'm still teaching Pilates every morning, doing Graham and all that. And June Wilkinson was a dear friend of mine in LA, to a dear friend of mine who's a great Fosse dancer who's on her way out from Parkinson's. And, when I saw the site, it was like I could speak to my family, because here in Florida, my last Fosse friend passed away from 2 years ago, Martha Pollock, who was in Liza with a Z, Little Me, Fiddler on the Roof. I did Fiddler. I was on the roof for 3.5 years. Afraid of Height. Said, why'd you do it? I said, I get paid on Thursdays. But I mean, to see you guys, I want to ask a question. I saw this name, Vicki Thomas. I went to performing arts with her. Is she a Black girl? She was in the drama department, and then I think she became a very famous casting agent. So does
I don't
anybody
know.
know Vic? Because I saw Vicky Thomas, and that sort of shocked me. I love Vicky. If it is that Vicky Thomas, you can only have the one name in equity. So
Yeah.
it must be Vicky. So she would have been 81 or 82 like myself. We were in the same year. I was in the music department in performing arts. And because of people, I became a dancer. In a year and a half, I worked for Jerry Robbins. I can't believe that. But so and then Sally, after during Variety it closed, it was on Sonny and Cher's choreographer, Jaime Rogers. Um, Sally came in with Carole King, and I had the best time with her. This is before she did Anna. She was getting ready. And I'm telling you, she was off the roof, funniest lady. And she did Pilates. We had a studio in Beverly Hills. And I used to, when people say, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "I hold feet." And basically, I do hold feet and I talk, sometimes very inappropriate. But to see that you have this monthly meeting, I don't know what it is. I just saw this and I said, "What is it?" And so I just want to, in the last 5 or 6 years, so many of my dancing friends have passed away. So I honor all of them. And especially my friend Susie, who's on her way out, who's a famous Fosse dancer, Suzanne Charney, who introduced me to Junie Wilkinson. We used to go to Vegas to see her show. And she's a beloved mother. She was a sweetheart. She cooked. She was nothing like her persona at all. She just happened to be stacked. And she made a lot of money doing that, but she was very funny. So bless all you guys for having this. And all of a sudden I realized I was a council member. Ah, I I resigned because we didn't have meetings in LA. So how could I be there Tuesdays and sit next to Maria Karnilova and get corned beef sandwiches for free from the Gaiety? That was and a pack of cigarettes. So
Michael, come on back. It's all on
you,
Zoom.
I mean, Theo Bacall was fabulous. Everybody on council. I mean, we had a ball. Nancy Lynch, I she did the entire run of Hello Dolly. I said, "How did you do the same show for 8 years?" She said, "I have 4 homes and embarrassing a franchise." I think that's what she told me. Or was Peter Conlo, who I did Fair Lady with Dorothy Collins. He choreographed the original. But still, they stayed there for 7.5, 8 years, did the whole thing. But anyway, council, I don't know what council's like now. Are you still on 46th Street, right?
We are. We
Yeah,
are, Michael.
120? No. My high school, the original performing arts was down the street from there. We were on the other side of the street from Equity. And then there was the Hooker Church. That's where they shot Fame, because the Board of Education, where they jump out. We didn't dance on cars. We didn't do any of that stuff. Louis Falco did that, but they couldn't use the facade of. Am I off?
No, you're here
Oh,
and you're
okay.
so entertaining. So
I
please
know.
keep going.
No. Anyway, the Board of Education wouldn't let them use the facade. It's now the Jackie Onassis um, a performing arts center. Some Japanese company wanted to buy it and tear it down, and Jackie said no. So thank you, Mrs. Kennedy Onassis. Kennedy Onassis. Kennedy. There's no, that's the married name. The Performing Arts Center will always be the John F. Kennedy Center. Thank you. By the way,
Amen.
I knew the Trump family since I'm 16. I have a lot of stories, and I did Pilates with Marla in LA, and we could not talk about him because she had an
Michael,
Sure.
We need to have a Zoom where you just tell stories, I think, is what we
Oh, I
need.
got stories. Okay. I was
Wait,
in
wait.
the, okay, let me end with this. My
Okay.
dear friend Johnny Mineo, who just passed away about a year and a half ago, I went to high school with him. Kathy, his first wife, died in the actor's home. Um, I replaced him. He became Barnaby, and I was Stanley, understudy to Barnaby and Dolly. And that's when I go to colleges, or then I used to go to USC and talk to theater departments. I go safe and sanitary. Um, your undergarments are washed twice a week, and the outer garments are only dry cleaned every 2 weeks. And when I went into Dolly, they gave me 2 weeks rehearsal because I had so much to learn as Stanley. He had more dancing than anybody else, and I had to learn some Barnaby stuff. Um, so they didn't have time to clean Johnny's outer clothes. I had no time for sex. I lived in Brooklyn with my parents, commuted. So on Wednesday, I went in Monday and I got crabs from the costume. So that's what I tell people usually when I'm talking in a university level. When you go into a show, go to wardrobe and make sure that your clothes are dry cleaned. Because I went upstairs to Johnny, who was doing something to Playboy magazine, and I said, "Excuse me, but you know, thank you for the gift, my opening night gift." And that was Welcome to Broadway, my first show.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the end of my stories.
Oh, Michael,
But I
seriously,
got a lot.
we're gonna reach out to you. We're gonna have a whole Zoom where you just tell stories someday.
Okay, and maybe I can get Susie on. We can Zoom. She's in Minnesota though. But
Okay.
she Suzanne Charney, the pony. I said you're the gayest icon in New York. She was the ponytail girl in Sweet
In
Charity.
Sweet Charity. No
Yeah.
way.
Well, yeah, she's dying from Parkinson's and
Oh,
is having a terrible time of it. You can't have pain medication with Parkinson's.
oh,
And if it wasn't for Michael J. Fox, God bless him, I remember seeing all what the government paid for research. And at the very bottom of everything was Parkinson. It was $1,747. And when Michael came out very young, and he's in such bad shape now, uh, we got millions of dollars for Parkinson's. There's still no test for it. It's
yeah.
symptomatic. So anyway, but God bless Sally Kirkland, who I had the best time holding her feet, and Junie Wilkinson, Playmate of the Year of the world. She worked her body great. Okay, that's it. God bless
Thank
everybody.
you, Michael. Thank you
Ha-
so much.
ha-
Thanks for being here.
Have a beautiful new year, everybody.
You too. You too.
Okay, thank
Margaret.
you.
Okay. I just want to mention Doug Leland, who passed away recently after struggles with cancer and having no money and having to ask friends to come to his apartment and bring him his morning coffee and all that stuff. He was an equity monitor when I was, and until they made the decision that the staff had to be employees of equity, and so equity members could no longer serve as staff. But he introduced me to so many different things about equity. I'm not much of a rule book reader, but listening to Michael and all of you, it's just so powerful. And I'm glad for this tribute. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Sorry for your loss.
Mhm.
Barbara, I'm going to go to Jessica and give her a chance to talk first, okay?
Sure, I just something
Jess,
great to say. Thank you. Yes, definitely.
Jessica. Oh, you're still muted. Let me see if I can. There we go.
Yep,
Oh,
she's muted again.
you got me. Oh, where'd she go? You got muted again somehow. Try one more time.
Okay. Are we on?
There we go. Thank you.
Yes. Is this thing on, as they say? Yes. Well, I was married to Jack Powell for 48 legal years, as I said in the obituary. And I just wanted to say that he was a wise ass right to the end, despite his Alzheimer's. What finally did him in about 36 hours was COVID. And that he would have gotten something of a charge, although it was getting hard to tell, from being listed right above Robert Redford. And also that I have worked with Chris Ailes, and he was a lovely British gentleman. And finally, I think he was still an equity member, but last week, Paul Salzman died in the LA area. And that is all I have to say. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm sorry for your loss. Barbara, did you want to say something else?
I want to say something very briefly, mostly to Michael. Michael, I would love to talk with you about your experience as a counselor. I don't know when you were a counselor, but you said there weren't even any hookups to LA of any type at the time. I was first elected in the early 90s and was only the second person who could hook up to council by phone. So if you can reach me through my equity email address or staff, please, if he wishes to reach out to you and get my information, please pass it along. I would love to talk with you, Michael. I live about as far away from you as possible. I live in Seattle now. Thank you very much.
I would also like to take a little moment to honor Barbara Roberts, who she passed while she was a counselor. And we got to say her name in the most recent council meeting. And as everyone has said, that woman could talk. And we had times where she said, "Oh, Todd, we have a meeting." And I would say, "We do." And I'd sign on to Zoom and it would just be her. And she just wanted to talk. And so Barbara and I would talk. Oh, but she cared and worked so hard. And, you know, like a union is only made up of the people that are in the union. And when you have people that care that much, then like that's how a union gets to succeed, because you just need a chunk of the membership to really care and to work hard. I also want to say I have loved Lonnie Anderson since I was a little kid. And one of the earliest times I knew I was gay was not that I wanted to be with Lonnie Anderson, I wanted to be Lonnie Anderson. And that helped me realize that. There's so many names on this list of people that I saw on stage or on film, that the kind of people that made me want to be an actor. So yeah, and I seem to know more and more people as the time goes by. Judy, talk to us.
Okay, this was unplanned, but I will tell a quick story about Catherine Bilbo, who, when I saw her name, someone younger than me, I had been out of contact with her for years, but I did 2 shows with her in Milwaukee when she was pretty young. And when I saw her name, and the shows came back to me, I'll just tell one funny story that endeared her to me, apart from her being a wonderful performer. I was stage managing a play where the first act ended with a 2-sentence last line, and the other actor she was on stage with said the first sentence and then stopped. And I was thinking, boy, he's taking a long pause. Finally realized he wasn't going to say it. And did the blackout, which then seemed really late. And after the show, Catherine said to me, when she and the other actor were walking down to the dressing room in intermission, he said to her, "Boy, I thought that blackout was never going to come." And she said to him, "She probably thought you were going to say the rest of the line." So I was, she endeared herself to me when she shared that with me afterwards. And she was a lovely performer in person too, but I had been out of touch with her for a long time.
Thanks, Judy. Oh, I've also been the person that only said half the line before, so I get it. Um, all right. Well, I think that might be it. Thank you all for being here
What?
as we,
What?
oh, Maureen.
Hi, I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. I'll make it very quick.
Go
John
for it.
Christopher Jones. John Christopher Jones. I believe he was a counselor for a while, but his acting was simply gorgeous and choices that most of us mortals would not even, it wouldn't even come to our outer limits, so to speak. I just want to mention him. And as you said, there are so many names on these months that have touched us in some way, and I want to add Elizabeth Franz to that. Thank you, and thank you
Yes.
for everything, Todd.
Thank you, Maureen. Maureen is the gorgeous voice person who usually reads names with me, and I'm sorry you had to listen to me talk so much because, like, if when we all pass, if we can be lucky enough to have someone like Maureen Moore read our names, it's a real classy way to go, I gotta say. Um, that is our meeting for today. We try to do these 4 times a year. Which would be 3 months at a time. We're at a 4 months at a time cycle right now. And hopefully we will fix that in 2026. It's hard to get meetings on the calendar. But thank you all for being here. This just lifts me up and I love doing it so much. I think Javon can put my email in there if you have any questions or advice on how we can do this better. Sometimes it pops up on the screen. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There it is. It's coming. Um, but you can reach out to me with my crazy name. I'm Todd Buonapane. It means good bread in Italian. It's why I can't do a low carb diet. And that is it for us. Have a happy new year, everyone. Have wonderful holidays.